All right, thanks, Ivy, for giving us time. Coming on Rooster Talk. It's probably, well, it's actually a very, very blue sky at the moment, from what I can see. Ivy, maybe we'll start with you just giving us an intro of what you do, and you're from CSA Global.
Okay, well, thanks, Noel, and thanks for the opportunity. Well, what do I do? I'm a bit of an oddball. I'm a geologist from a mining and resource estimation background, but the oddball part comes in from having spent 6 years working for the corporate regulator at ASIC. So when I was there like their technical translator. I used to translate geology and mining into lawyerese. I'm a geologist that speaks lawyer. And it was fascinating because when the time I was at ASIC, that was during the update of the 2012 JORC code, and
Okay.
also the ASX listing rules update for mining and oil and gas disclosure. So it was an awesome time to be there. And now I work in CSA's corporate section, where we're basically the technical engine for mining companies that need to do corporate transactions and lodge technical reports. We do that. I do valuations, stuff like that. I'm on the Valmin committee.
Okay. Interesting. I've forgotten that you worked a bit of time in ASIC. A good time to bring up the topic because, in terms of what's happening now, I guess, and I mean, ASX released some updates yesterday, I think. They gave most companies a bit of a looser rope to try and maneuver themselves over these tough times. From an ASIC point of view, I'm not asking you to speak for them. What would be some of the points that you think could happen? I mean, insolvency and all this kind of stuff is an obvious topic, but yeah, just give us your thoughts on that.
Okay, I think one thing to clear out for the ASX, they released this on the 31st of March. I think they wanted to avoid releasing anything on April Fool's Day yesterday. Anyway, it's the date's relevant because that's how they list their stuff. It's 31 March, if anyone's looking
Okay.
for it. Yeah, but in terms of that release, it's quite useful in that what they're saying is that the most critical thing is to keep the market abridged as to what's happening. So if a company is having trouble raising funds, it should tell the market and tell its investors. They've had, ASIC has relaxed the rules a little bit about trading insolvent. So while a company still can't trade insolvent, it will have more time to respond in terms of before bankruptcy is declared and things like that. And the ASX guidance is quite helpful to say how to talk about these things, what to talk about. It comes down to materiality. If it's material, if it impacts the company's price or its value, then it's probably relevant to tell the market about it. And then the things that they list in here would be, the first one would be if it's having financial difficulties or if it's got cash flow issues, or perhaps things like having to change staff rosters, having to stand down staff particularly. Most companies will try to hang on to their key staff, and a lot of companies are doing very well at this. But if it's getting too difficult and a company is forced to perhaps suspend or just put people on hold for a bit, or if they have to suspend key operations, these are the sorts of things that the guidance suggests that are material and should be disclosed.
Yeah, I think going forward, as everything's new, and I don't think the regulators would know what could happen. So I think it's good to see that they're trying to help out in some ways, because I'm pretty sure down the road, if things get tighter in terms of movement, the logistics itself for companies, even if they really wanted to do something, would create a big issue.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A friend of mine, he's normally based in Perth and doing FIFO out of a mine site in the Northern Territory. He's relocating for a few months to Darwin and taking his fancy racing bike with him up there, because at least he's then within the state that he's working. So he's not having to cross state and territorial boundaries to get to work and back through the FIFO requirements. So companies are quite innovative doing things like this, and it helps. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. In terms of, I guess, you're going down the road of compliance, that's the company view. Then you're looking at maybe trying to comply with, say, a job statement or something, and making sure that you do what you're supposed to do to be relevant. You see that becoming an issue, maybe?
Possibly. I mean, in terms of the technical aspects, maybe quite less of an impact, except perhaps in ore reserves. No, ore reserves, companies might need to think about how whatever changes are impacting their ore reserves, but during the GFC, most companies did not change their ore reserves because the entire industry was impacted in exactly the same way. So it was a set of common conditions, so companies didn't update. But in this COVID thing, where if the circumstances are specifically affecting a company in a specific way, which the company feels might not impact other companies, then that might be consideration for disclosure. So, but it's exceptional circumstances, I think. It would be if...
Yeah, from a consultant point of view, I mean, obviously you guys, have a big client base from big companies to small, and you're involved in trying to be in the process of trying to collect the samples, have sample integrity, and all these kind of things. And now suddenly you're stuck with, as we said, logistical issues. Who's supervising what? Who's making sure that the samples have the integrity that it should? Do you think that's going to be manageable, or how are you guys looking to manage that?
Well, I think some exploration programs have necessarily scaled back because simply because staff can't stay out there indefinitely. But I think if the exploration program continues and the people who are supervising it, the competent persons, are still able to supervise the sample collection to the level where they are happy that sample quality and sample integrity, sample security, all these aspects are not materially impacted, then there shouldn't be an issue. It's very much, again, a call by the competent person to make sure that they, as the competent person, are happy with things under these circumstances.
Yeah, I guess it's all what if and what could be.
Very much so, no. I mean, this is crystal ball stuff. I mean, who can tell what's going to happen even 3 days down the track or even tomorrow?
Yeah, so, I mean, tomorrow you could wake up and there'll be another set of rules, and or people talk about 3 months, 6 months, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think we touched on this when we discussed prior to us doing this recording, is that the recovery is, as I said to a friend, the good news is that the recovery is next. We've got to probably as worse as we can get. We sort of know where the base case or baseline is, and the market is reacting to results for those that are out there.
Absolutely. I mean, the market volatility is incredible at the moment. They reckon that it's more volatile than it was during the GFC. And watching the news every night, it bounces better than a yo-yo. But I think when the recovery, most people are relying on the recovery coming, and when it does, it's going to go quickly, which is why people are, as much as possible, trying to hang on to their expertise, doing what they can now to review information that they have. Now is probably the time to look at a lot of acquired exploration data that really no one's had time to do because they're so busy drilling.
Yeah,
I think possibly.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think like what you said about looking at the data, because now is the time where you've got staff and you want them to be out there next to a drill rig, but now you can't. But you've got stuff to do in the office. you can never catch up, you know. So it could be a good time for you to catch up.
Yeah, well, it's a wonderful opportunity to catch up. It's sort of quiet time which everyone is hopefully using to really drill down into what they have, to go back to old data and try and see what might be there that they haven't had time to look at properly, to look for connections between different sorts of anomalies, different ways of investigating things. Wow.
Yeah, I
Are
think
you
for
in a
you
flight
guys,
path though?
I know. I'm trying to figure the flight path out so then I can make these things in between, but it doesn't
I
seem
know
to
it's
be happening.
so inconsiderate, you know. CASA should be telling you.
I know. Yeah, I know. But in some sense, I mean, I know some of the guys that work with CSA, and you guys are more sort of, I mean, these guys are, I guess, more of a higher level consultant looking at those kind of things. I think it's, like, I think you touch on a really good point. I'd never thought about it in this sense, is that this is the best time for you to discuss your theories, discuss your
Oh yeah.
possibilities, because you don't have a choice. You can't do anything rather than sort of bunkering down in a cave to be productive. You know, lots of people are actually telling me that they've never worked this hard ever, because
Yeah, absolutely.
they're actually sitting down working, not having 10 meetings a day, whereas now they're actually doing the work.
That's right. You're getting solid chunks of time to think, which is so wonderful.
Yeah, and
And
in our game, especially for a small cap company, you always said money's got to be in the ground, but now you're actually forced to sit down and do something, you know. You can't play golf.
well, a good point. I'm glad I never learned to play golf.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that's a good point. This is the time where you look at your data, you postulate what's around, you know.
And I think with regards, closing back to our disclosure, then it's important to make sure that whatever a company chooses to disclose about whatever it's thinking about, whatever it's doing, to make sure that that reasonable basis is there. Or if it's very hypothetical, state that it is hypothetical so that people understand the confidence that's associated with whatever disclosures anyone makes.
Yeah, in some ways, a lot of these hypothetical theories or hypothetical concepts relevant to a company's journey, right? You can,
Absolutely.
yeah, you're going to make a really good case for being that neurology play. You can make the case for it. You can make the case of something that's similar. You know, what am I seeing in the ground that say, you know, we've got this, but someone else over there has that. Could this
Yeah.
be, we're chasing the same
Well, that's
concepts, right?
absolutely. And this is where neurology is a completely valid tool to use as long as the context is appropriate. And neurology gets a really bad name because everyone sneers at it and goes, oh, people are trying to draw conclusions that don't exist. But as geologists who understand what geological relationships and mineralization relationships are, neurology is valid. But we have to explain the context in which we're using this neurology so that it doesn't get regarded as a cheap and nasty marketing tool to exploit the prospects of a project. It's a valid tool, but the critical thing is to explain the materiality of that analogy and the context and frame it properly that way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's I mean, that's a good positive way to use this time, and rather than say, you know, I'm next to so and so, I should have this, but percentage people will just take that as Bible, and percentage will take that as not. But if now is a time where you can actually put it all together and it's like
That's
you
right.
said, you know, validate your thoughts.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very critical. And it always has been. That's
Yeah.
never changed. But I think now we hopefully will have the time to craft it properly without the rush of got to do it by 3 p.m. today, that sort of thing. Wait till tomorrow, 3 p.m. tomorrow or the day after, it's probably better. You get a better quality disclosure then.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the posts from Sam Ulrich, and a lot of people kind of think that's sort of a point of neurology or neurotype, but I think a lot of those things are very relevant. You know, cost of production, the same style of mineralization, same style of processing, what I'm dealing with here, what you're dealing with there, hence my production cost should be in the same range, that kind of stuff.
I mean, this again is back to the JORC code, where you need to disclose your underlying assumptions. Those underlying assumptions are what then strengthen whatever analogies any company is drawing with another project somewhere else. If the geological assumptions hold true, if the whatever other assumptions with regards to processing costs, if they are borrowed, state they're borrowed, but explain the basis for that borrowing. That, I know, we just didn't randomly pick this out of a hat because we like the color. Apologies to your hats. But, you know, people assume...
New hat just for you, mate. Just new hat just for you.
Awesome, thank you. But, you know, we're all technical professionals. We assume things and we know why we assume things, but we sometimes forget to explain them carefully so that people who don't have our technical expertise and experience also understand. And sometimes that's totally critical.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Ivy. You know, it's. I didn't think this conversation was going down this direction, but I actually really enjoyed that. I actually learned something. I actually think that's a good point. There's a point that, from a marketing point of view, from trying to get people out to say, hey, why am I so good? Or I mean, the company, the project. It's a very valid thing that gets thrown out there, but never really investigated in terms of how valid this can be.
Absolutely. You know, so if I go out there to market and I say, look, I'm the best and this is why, then that allows somebody else to agree with me or disagree with me, but at least they understand where I'm coming from.
All right, Ivy, I won't take any more of your time. It's been a fantastic conversation. I thought it was, you know, we're going to be on compliance. It'll be really boring, but actually, it's actually not.
That compliance is never boring, no. It's just a matter of, again, relevance and materiality.
Ivy, thank you very much. And look, maybe we can do this on a monthly basis, or you know, or since we've got nothing else better to do, maybe a bit more often.
Yeah, absolutely, anytime. Anytime. It's great having a chat with you, no?
Okay, thank you, Ivy.
A pleasure. Pleasure.